Hello, I'm Valerie McLennan. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you may be. I hope you're well. This is my spiritual channel, Valerie Mac, Scottish, spiritual, and very funny. Now, have you had a nice day? Have you? It was lovely here today, considering it is nearly November. The sun was out, and the sun was actually quite warm. It was quite warm on my face because I was out. And I've mentioned before, did you buy my album? I'm an autumn and spring kind of woman. I am. Well, today was your typical autumnal day, crunching the leaves beneath your feet. I love that. It was very dry. It was the leaves, the crunchy leaves, and quite warm. The sun was quite warm on my face. But do you notice within 2 seconds, as the day progresses and the sun disappears, within 2 seconds, you're frozen to the bone. That's when you remember, it's nearly November. I forgot. I thought it was still in the summer because the blue sky, the sun, I know. But it was a lovely autumnal day. I hope you get out. If you're able to go out, I hope you manage to go a walk or do something just to make the most of the weather that's left for us. If you're in Scotland at this time of year. Thanking you very much. Now, if you're a new listener, thank you very much. Could you listen to my previous podcasts? That would be greatly appreciated. And if you've been following me a while, could you please stop? Or else I'm going to get the police. I share stories. I share my wisdom. I try and make you laugh. All of the above. Sometimes burst into song, even surprising myself. Now, the topic I'm discussing this evening, I've mentioned over the last couple of years. I've had this channel for a couple of years. I know, just to mention again briefly, I changed the channel over, so the majority of my podcasts are on the other channel, but I will be moving them over, so there's not that many here as yet, but they will be joining the other podcasts very soon. I keep forgetting to do it. Anyway, now, the topic I have mentioned over the last couple of years is avoiding negativity and toxic situations. Now, as I've got more mature, I'm nearly 40, for goodness sake. Pardon? I know, I'm nearly 40 now. So what I try to do is, as if your life depended on it, because in reality, your life does depend on it. If you allow negativity or anger or suppressed anger, to me there's no difference. If somebody's angry in an outburst or if they're trying to suppress anger and put a lid on it, that kind of thing, there's no difference. Now I'm not making this up, we are living on an energy plane on planet Earth. Everything radiates energy. If you're around people who are calm, you might walk away and you feel, even consciously or unconsciously, you might feel a bit calmer than you were before you spoke to the person. It's the same in reverse. If you're meeting somebody and you feel relatively calm and someone's standing in front of you suppressing anger or having little outbursts, tendency is their energy, it's got to. It couldn't go anywhere else. Their energy could, if you allow it, absorb into your being. And you wander away thinking, I feel absolutely fuming. And you don't know what's happened. You think, I don't know what happened, but I feel fuming. Now, this sounds funny, but this happens over and over again in life. Now, as I've got more mature, I avoid this, absolutely, as I said, as if my life depended on it. Because on the spiritual path, I'm very, very aware of the impact it's potentially got on my mind and my health and my spirit. Excuse me, I'm not handing my mind and my spirit over to anyone with anger, bursts of anger, or whatever it is, because I've worked hard to be where I am with my mind still relatively insane. Or even sane. I done that, I was deliberate. You don't want to end up completely and utterly at the mercy of other people. If your mood or whatever the energy is going. Now, I'm going somewhere with this. If you listen to my previous podcast, I've mentioned this for the last couple of years. I avoid negative chatter, negative people, anything toxic, because I know the impact that could have on my remaining years on planet Earth. Now, call me old-fashioned. If you're on a spiritual path and if you're amongst people who are on the spiritual path, you don't expect to be met, genuinely with anger. Now, I'm going somewhere with this. Just to give you an example, because I tend to, as I said, I try and give you experiences from my own life. I've said that since I started this channel 2 years ago. I give you stories, and it's not anybody else's story I give. Sadly, I've experienced everything I'm sharing with you. So again, I'm going to share this. I just decided this today. I'm going to share this with you as an example of what I mean. I'm trying to explain over the podcast. This is an example, a physical representation of what happened to me a few days ago. I was at a spiritual event and I wasn't taking part, as in speaking. I was sitting. It wasn't anything to do with me. I was just there. And, the event in particular, you would assume it was totally spiritual along that topic, and the ambience, and it was a very kind of important thing I was at. I'm trying to be vague. So it was a very important event, and you just assume, call me old-fashioned, that it would be calm, peaceful, and all of the above. Anyway, this is me now giving you an example of energy field. Now, prior to that little bit I'm working my way up to, if people are cooking for you, you maybe or you maybe not have heard others refer to the importance of being careful even what you're eating. And now this is where you might say, for goodness sake, no, this is very, very true. Because we're on an energy field, there are many, 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 even senior people in life, as high up as you can imagine, who believe the following. So it's not just some silly little notion. Be careful who's cooking your food. And because again, the energy's been put into the food. So if you're out somewhere and everybody's really, raging with temper and they're making your food, you're also absorbing that energy into your, in the food and the cooking. That's the reason you hear people saying, if they make a meal, and it could be a very, very basic meal, it doesn't have to be anything lavish, but if you hear people saying they made a meal, you often hear them saying it was made with love, because they've poured love and emotion into the cooking of the meal. You often hear people saying that, even if they're doing it for their families or whatever it was. You'll hear them saying it's made with love, because the pain, whoever's cooking it is doing it with a good heart. They're trying to do their best, and they make it. So you hear that expression, cooking the meal with love. It's very, very important that you watch. Don't just eat anything from anybody if they look raging with temper when they're giving you, because again, the energy, this might sound nothing, but it's very important. And as I said, many, many people live this way, and they're very careful where they're eating, what they're doing, and they watch who's making it and what kind of, temperament, shall we say, they're in. So here, keep in mind that I live my life this way. Keep in mind I'm very well aware of that. And many others are as well. Here I was at the spiritual event, which is quite an important thing, being vague. And I was sitting, and there was a gentleman, was sitting, and there was a kind of a meal. Well, we were sitting at a type of a meal, and being vague again, and a gentleman approached, and he was in this world as well, and he said, do you mind if I join you at this table? There was about 5 or 6 of us at the table. I said, no, certainly. So he sat beside us, and he started explaining that he works, what he does, blah, blah, blah. I won't give you too much, but he's obviously in this world, and he works with many people on this type of path. So we were having a nice conversation. He was very calm. I felt I was. So he lived quite a distance from where this said event was, and he was going to have to drive back, and he wasn't too sure of the area. So he was asking direction. How do I get from here to there to here to you? So we mentioned where the direction, how to get back, etc. And he just said, I'll be heading off in a moment because I'm not too sure of the road. And I said, that's not okay. So just then I spotted someone that I'd seen earlier in the evening and looked a bit rattled, shall we say. To put it politely, slightly rattled. And I thought, for goodness sake. Anyway, the tables were full. It was quite fun. I can laugh now. Couldn't laugh then. Anyway, the tables were full of said items, for eating. I'm being vague. And there's quite a selection, nice selection, all made with love. And you could see a lot of people had volunteered, a lot of people had put their heart and soul in it, an awful lot of effort. And that became very, very apparent at the view in front of my eyes. Well, there was one person I know that I had met and didn't exactly, they ruined my ambience. So anyway, the man I was speaking to, who was quite high up in the circle, being vague is quite difficult, he was chatting to me and he said, blah, 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 and you go because of the traffic, and I say, I don't know where I'm going, blah, blah. And then I spotted someone coming with a cake. And I said, well, no, we want a bit of cake first. Oh, here, maybe I will. Anyway, said person, who was the one that looked rattled to me earlier, didn't just seem rattled, was rattled. Anyway, it was quite funny, because I had thought, I'll take a little bit of the cake and I'll hand it to this nice gentleman who's just going to drive quite a distance home. And I just leaned up. He kind of stood with a plate, didn't really say anything. And I put my hand, if he had said, because you have a plate on the table, I would have understood. He didn't. He handed the plate like you normally do in nice known circumstance that people hand you a plate and you just take something off it? Am I old-fashioned? Have I dropped in from space? I've done that many times in my lifetime. So he just stood and he didn't speak, and he was just holding the plate in front of my face. So I just kind of went speaking to the man, and I put my hand up to take a little bit of the cake, and he nearly bit my face off. And I said, "Don't take a slice, take the plate." Now, that's without any exaggeration. I'm in a spiritual event, and the man across from his eyes nearly popped out of his head. And I'm kind of thinking, what? Anyway, in other words, translated, what he wanted me to do, if he'd only asked, was to take the entire plate off him and put it on the table. But as he hadn't spoken, and he just put the plate in my direction, I just went to take a bit of the cake, like you would normally do. And he shouted in my face, "Don't take a bit to the plate." I know. Anyway, so I removed said plate from said hand. Keep in mind, I don't cook, I don't eat from angry people. So I took the plate in my spiritual event, and I kind of looked at the man across from me who looked kind of bewildered, and because he heard them. So I put he couldn't miss because the two of us were speaking. So I put the plate on the table, and amongst the other stuff. And I kind of looked at him. Now, I don't know at this point if it's sheer coincidence or was this because the man thinks as I do. But I noticed that man put his hand beyond that plate. He ignored that plate. He took a cake off a plate that was about 3 or 4 down. And I thought, he obviously has the same mindset as me. You don't know, if either one of us had taken a cake off that plate, myself and that poor gentleman, who was very high up in spirituality, would have been going home absolutely raging with temper, fuming. We wouldn't have known why, because we would have eaten the energy of that plate that was handed to us with such an outburst. I thought, I'm in a spiritual event and I got to fright my life. So did he. Anyway, but what I did notice was he didn't actually take a bit off that, neither did I. He didn't take the cake off there, neither did I, and we both reached further down to get a bit of cake. Oh, for goodness sake. Anyway, I won't give the other bit, but there's more after that because we couldn't understand what was going on. But now, I don't know if you listens to this, I hope you do, but if you did, could you not just have said, "Excuse me, could you possibly put that plate down on the table?" I understand that kind of formal language. I would have to remove the plate from your hand, and I would have put it on the table beside all the other stuff. When you just stand beside me and you just put the plate under my face, I thought you were offering me a bit of cake, and I thought I'll take it and I would ask you to pass it to the gentleman. Anyway, neither of us have eaten it. Thank you very much. I had heartburn with the panic, and then, I just don't like it. Anyway, my point being, I have no intentions of eating anything off a plate that's handed to me in that form because of the anger, what I've been seeing in the last couple of years. Now, you shouldn't hand anything to anyone, because if you're handing that over, your energy of that anger, it's got nowhere to go. Now, the fact I didn't accept it means it's reversed back to the person that was offering it. As I keep saying, thank you for your criticism and thank you for that attitude, but I decline. Now, the minute I don't let that register in my mind, and I didn't digest the cake, neither did the other person, we both ate a different cake, that means that goes right back to the other person. Now, if you are trying to teach or be in an atmosphere of spirituality, call me old-fashioned. If you're going around with suppressed anger and you're nearly bursting a blood vessel, it's not a good look. It's not a good look. Now, you want to be a representation of what you're trying to encourage people to join. It's not rocket science. If I was going there and I thought, I don't think I'll bother, thanking you anyway. Now, I avoid those circumstances, and I wouldn't like that to be my atmosphere too often, because if it is in my atmosphere more than once, I shall let that go, and more than once. Once, not more than once. I would remove myself from that total atmosphere, because I'm very, very aware of what I'm trying to teach and what I'm trying to do, and for my own sanity. Now, anything like that, direct it somewhere else and keep it well away from me. Now, that's all. I just thought I've been handed a physical example to let you see what I mean about this is why they say the food. Now, the sad thing there, a lot of the food was cooked with love and made, with hands and love. Now, if it's delivered with anger, it kind of takes away. You know what I mean? So if people are cooking meals with you, that's why they say you should always say thank you, because you're accepting not only the meal and the food that you need as nourishment, but you're also receiving the love the person has put in to making the food. Too many people in life overlook all that, grab it, eat it and walk off. They're staring at their phone, doing all of this. Be more gracious and remember that people, when they're cooking a meal for you, it is generally being cooked with love. We can't really often help the delivery literally, if somebody's going to throw a plate in your face. I can laugh now, but I think that man's face and my face, we were in the middle of a nice conversation. I know, with spirituality, and then I went, goodness sake. I did actually say to the person, you're sounding very grumpy, if you don't mind me saying. I know. I need the cheek to say I am. And that ambience, you know who you are. Now, thanking you, and I hope you're having a better day today. Goodness sake. Anyway, 15 minutes and 24. Look after each other. I don't think tomorrow's as nice a day, but get out, go a little walk, do something, clear your mind, live in an ambience of kindness and love, and tell those with anger issues to beat it. Look after each other. Speak to you soon. Bye for now.